with a hearing set to see if a WWE Hall of Famer will return to jail and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for May 11th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Making his debut for AEW in February, Keith Lee has aligned himself with Swerve Strickland. On the MacMania podcast, Lee spoke about what he could potentially do in AEW. Considering that I have just recently joined AEW, I'm pretty committed to trying to raise the bar there in a multitude of ways. Something about more marketing or an interest in growing the name itself is kind of my goal and purpose right now. Ring of Honor is something that I haven't seen since 2017. I'd be willing to have a match there under the right circumstances. There are quite a few potential matchups that are interesting, like Mr. Samoa Joe. He's a circumstance where I would consider him to be a bit of a mentor, especially from the business side of things. Taught me a lot. For all intents and purposes, he's the reason that I ever took a chance going to the East Coast. If it was not for his advice, him and Brian Cage, I never would have gone to the East Coast. I never would have had that match with Dijak that kind of changed the trajectory of my career as a whole. I could have been just another dude stuck in Texas doing random stuff. There's something special about those three letters, especially when you come from it and it's helped build who you are. I'd be open to fighting there. Speaking to Talk Sport, Drew McIntyre, who has seemingly done it all in WWE, has one more title he hopes to win before he hangs up his boots. Yes, I just want it, because when I was a kid and I saw it, it was like, oh man, I want to be European champion. And now I can't because it doesn't exist right now. I don't like too many titles, and there are a lot right now, but I just wanted it when I was a kid. So just bring it back, let me win it, and then I'll retire it. You never want too many titles in the company because then it's not as special. I think where we're at right now is good, but give old Drew the European title for young Drew. McIntyre would also touch on this back and forth with boxing superstar Tyson Fury. I appreciate that my name is always in his mouth. He's got an obsession with Drew McIntyre, which is kind of weird, but I kind of like it at the same time. We've been going back and forth to each other nonstop for a couple of years. He's got our number. My focus is on Roman Reigns and the titles right now, but if he wants to do business, he knows our people. Give us a call. Speaking on the DDP Snake Pit podcast, Jake Roberts recalled his time working for WWE as a writer and how he lost that position. I wasn't struggling in the beginning, but I didn't want to work. I just wanted to write. But as Vince does, he gets what he wants. And this guy would get hurt and this guy would miss a show and I would have to go replace him. That was okay. But then he said, we need you on this European trip. We need you back on the road. And games were being played at the office with the writers. There was a lot of jealousy involved. Some didn't want me there. Some did. And it wasn't long before I was out of that. That's a shame because I enjoyed writing, but when I went back on the road full time, I knew I was in trouble. Speaking of the Snake, AEW commentator Jim Ross would note on this podcast that Roberts is still suffering from health problems. I just saw him here a few weeks ago and he's still battling his breathing issues. He's not in great health. That's why you don't see him as often on AEW television as he once was when he was fronting Lance Archer. But his health is not good and he's taken the means to address it. He still has surgeries left, but he has breathing issues. Roberts had recently revealed that he underwent yet another hip procedure, as we wish him all the best in his recovery. After defeating Britt Baker for the AEW Women's title in March, Thunder Rosa's reign has been on the receiving end of flack from fans. Touching on those critical of her run as Women's Champion, Rosa told Talk Sport, I just know that people are never going to be satisfied with everything that you do, or anything that happens, bottom line. I'm going to do my best with everything I'm given all the time, and people will criticize that too, which is okay. People are going to talk, and if they're talking, that means they're watching. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. I had a banger of a match with Nyla Rose, and I was able to show some sides that I haven't been able to in years in that ring. It was a dynamic match and something different. David versus Goliath in that aspect. Everyone is different and there's always going to be criticism, but whatever it is in my hands to make better, I will. This match at Double or Nothing, and I say this now, I'm going to show that I am the best wrestler in the world. That AEW has the best women's division in the world. And that's what I'm here for. Like it or not, I'm the AEW Women's Champion. So get used to seeing my face, get used to hearing my voice. With him debuting for WWE in 2018 on NXT, Matt Riddle revealed on the Catch Club that seeing Bryan Danielson change the landscape of the company made him want to join. For me, I always wanted to do pro wrestling, but I felt because of my size I was going to get overlooked, especially earlier, like in the early 2000s. But then as I kept training in mixed martial arts and doing that, I saw the world of professional wrestling start to change. The landscape changed, you know? Guys like Daniel Bryan were beating Batista and Triple H, and they were the champs. And when I saw that, I went, you know what? I think this place has changed. I don't think you have to be a giant. I think if you're highly skilled, highly charismatic, you bring everything to the table, and you cross those T's and dot those I's, you'll get an opportunity. And I always wanted to do this. I thought this was the time when I hit the ground running. After beating Damian Priest for the US title, Finn Balor would lose it in no time to Austin Theory. With fans frustrated regarding Balor's booking, Booker T gave his take on Balor's WWE status on his Hall of Fame podcast. Finn Balor is a great worker and can perform at a very high level, but the one thing that business has always, I think, as far as guys getting over is believability. They made the fans feel a certain way, not by what we watched them do in the ring, just by watching them. Finn Balor goes out there and does some of the most spectacular moves that you've ever seen. A win, just say for instance, when he cuts a promo, he may not make you feel like he really wants to go out there and hurt that guy. Back at Starrcade 99, Bret Hart would face off against Goldberg, where Hart took a stiff kick to the face that left him with a concussion and a shortened in-ring career. While Hart had to retire, Goldberg still finds himself making a ton of money wrestling the occasional match for WWE. As Hart gave his thoughts on this while speaking to Lucha Libre Online. I think for me, it's always been a bit of a sore spot. It always makes me kind of mad that some guy is flying all the way over to Saudi Arabia and making $3 million in a match, and the same guy is the guy that kicked me in the head and never thought about me or what he cost me and my family and what he did to me. With CM Punk claiming there are no longer casual fans in pro wrestling, this led to a response from former WCW president Eric Bischoff. Punk would reply telling wrestling fans to not amplify Bischoff's voice. Now those on Reddit have given their take on the situation. Punk must be sore about the fact that his triumphant return drew extra fans for a couple of weeks but then pushed people away. He must be especially wounded about the fact that since his main event push against Hangman, the ratings have steadily dropped for Dynamite and Rampage. Maybe Punk could learn from listening to someone like Bischoff, who did make stars who could draw money. He's a needle mover, just in the wrong direction. Most of these veteran wrestling talent attack current day wrestling for engagement. Without it, they wouldn't be doing close to the numbers that they currently do. Their podcast and bank accounts depend on it. What's the bad faith? His point is AEW is not growing a fan base. Punk came in and it hasn't made any difference. Everything is pretty much the same as when he arrived. Punk is a fantastic performer, entertaining and always fun to watch. He's also a miserable, thin-skinned bitch of a human being for some reason if anyone does or says the least little thing he disagrees with. Known to WWE fans as Sunny, Tammy Sytch was recently arrested for DUI manslaughter and 8 other charges, following a car accident which left a 75-year-old man dead. While she was released after posting the bond of nearly $230,000, PW Insider is reporting that a motion has been filed to revoke said bond and have her returned to jail. The state submits that there is a substantial probability that the defendant committed DUI manslaughter when she killed a victim on March 25, 2022. The state also submits that defendant poses a threat of harm to the community based on criminal history surrounding driving offenses as detailed above. With AEW and New Japan holding their first joint pay-per-view event in the form of Forbidden Door, News 12 was told by AEW President Tony Khan that this show garnered over $1 million in ticket sales. Grand Slam was almost the first $1 million gate in AEW history, just came shy of that, but it was real close, and of course, we set that record. Now, for AEW Double or Nothing Las Vegas became our first $1 million gate for live tickets, and now just hit it again for our partnership with New Japan for Forbidden Door show at the United Center. Following his WWE contract expiring in February, Cesaro has become a free agent, but apparently promoters are having issues booking him according to Fightful. Many promoters that we've spoken to say Cesaro was priced out of some potential bookings, and they'd not been able to land him until the ask came back down to earth. Cesaro has been repped by an agent who also manages several other wrestlers. However, we're told that some wrestlers had been intentionally utilizing a high asking price because they're content staying home until the right deal or offer comes along after being on the road for so long. We haven't heard if that's specifically the case with him. With them previously training in a ring, Ric Flair has posted yet another video of himself and former ROH World Champion Jay Lethal wrestling.
Oh, God! Yeah! I got him now, baby! Yeah! Go! 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 Go, God! Oh! Oh! Go! Go! No! No! Go! 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 Oh! Oh! Oh, God! Oh, God! Oh, 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 no, 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 no. Ah, ah. Oh, God. No, baby, no, come right here. Huh? Whoa! Oh, God. Whoa! Oh.
And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.